Hey guys, so last week I did a video called The Weird Thing About Art Improvement, and I got a lot of great comments from you all, but one in particular stood out to me, which was this one by a user named Narragant. They said, "Hey Jay, I was wondering if you've ever made a piece that almost exceeds your skill level in a way that you can't recreate how good it was for a while until your skill level catches up. The other day I drew a piece that's definitely my best yet, but none of my drawings since have nearly been as good. This happens to me occasionally, but it also makes me lose motivation due to those higher quality works raising my standards. I was wondering if this is normal in the process of improvement." And just to quickly answer your question, yes, I think this is normal, and I've experienced this in the past as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some old artwork that I've done in the past and kind of give you my take on why I think this is happening and why this has happened to me. The first theory I call finding a trick. Basically what it means is that you discover a new technique or a tool, and that manages to bring your artworks to a whole new level. And while you're probably thinking, if I've learned this new technique or if I've learned a new trick, doesn't that mean I could just apply it to all my new artworks in the future and they'll turn out just as good? And that's because every artwork isn't the same. Like, for example, if I'm drawing a landscape, I'm going to use certain techniques to achieve the textures that I need to do a landscape. If I'm going to do a character portrait, I'm going to use different painting techniques to, define the details in the eyes, and it's going to be a very different approach. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that finding new techniques or finding tricks is a bad thing. Like, of course, experimentation is good and learning these new techniques and tools is always important. The problem for me was that I used this trick without understanding the underlying fundamentals behind it. Okay, so that's a pretty generic example, but I want to show you guys like my process and like my old art where I screwed things up really badly. So I've got a screen recording going and I'm just going to show you some stuff. So the first one is called Brunette. And here we go. Basically, it's just a painting of a girl, and I've gotten maybe a couple of hours into it. I've fleshed out like her face and her body, and this is what I'm at. So I got to this point and I wasn't happy with the painting. It's just really brown and really dark, and there's not a lot of contrast, and I don't even know what she's doing. Like, what's she doing with her hands? She's just like I don't know what that is. So this is the next version. And one of my big tricks back then was to use like a bright color in the background to pop out a character in the foreground. So here you can see I've put this big bright yellow block here, and then I've also tried to lighten up the other side as well. And then I just totally painted over her face. I can't remember why, it was still too deformed for my liking. And at the time I couldn't see why. Like, I was like, if I put this here, won't it just somehow magically become good? But now looking back, I know exactly why it's not working, and that's because the pose is really awkward. I have no like overarching goal, or I didn't put time into the composition to figure out what I want to achieve. So I just drew her standing in an awkward position and just started painting it in the hopes that it would look good at the end. Anyway, eventually what happens is I abandon this, and this is what I end up with, which is 100% completely different. In fact, the only thing that still remains from the original painting is the palette, and then also the concept that it's a girl. And as much as I really enjoy this piece, it kind of signals like a failure for me, because I knew starting out that my weakness was like body and anatomy, and I wanted to do something that would challenge me, and I ended up just abandoning it and just doing what was in my comfort zone and what I knew that I could do well. Yeah, here is the final painting, which, I mean, it looks kind of cool, and I like the textural quality of like the painting. It looks really rich and warm. But let me get into the progress and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So this one started out as a simple sketch, and I was really happy with like the armor and the detailing. So I thought, this is cool, and maybe there's something there. Maybe it can turn into something nice. Here you can see I'm implementing my other trick, which is to bring out the background so that the character stands out. And I'm still kind of happy with it. I'm still just like playing around with colors and laying down the foundations. But here in this next step, you're gonna see me run into some troubles. So here you can see I've rendered the face really nicely, and I'm really happy with it. But it's gotten to the point where I can't move much further with that point, and now I have to face the thing that I've been avoiding the whole time, which is the legs. I've started painting in some legs, but it looks kind of awkward. He's kind of floating there and he's not really standing in a space. And now at version 5, what I've done is I've just gotten rid of the legs altogether because I was super frustrated with them, and I've just have them kind of fading into a mystical fog. And then as usual, I've just kept rendering the upper body because that's all I know how to do, and I'm really one-dimensional. Okay, version 6, even more detail on the upper body, and I've tentatively tried to go back into the legs, but I'm just too frustrated. So I've just softly fleshed them out, but I haven't been too aggressive with the legs for fear of getting frustrated once again. And finally, I pluck up the courage to go for the legs again, and I fail again. I try to give him some armor. Again, he looks like he's floating there, and yeah. Damn, that looks bad. And so every time I come across these frustrations, I go back to the upper body and detail it even more because it makes me feel good, but I'm still just in denial of the fact that I just do not know how to draw legs and did not spend time to ground this character in my initial sketches and composition. Okay, so I'm finally starting to get somewhere. I start to realize that in order to ground this character, I'm going to need to give him an environment. Starting to look a bit better, and you might think, okay, cool, you're making progress. And yeah, actually this one looks alright, but let's see what happens in the next version. So yeah, I just ditch it entirely, and this is the final version. I just give up completely. I get rid of the sword because it was looking really flat, and you might be wondering, why did I get rid of the environment? Like, it was turning out alright. And the reason why is because I didn't feel confident painting trees. The textures just looked weird, and I could see all my brush strokes, but they just looked really amateurish. So as you can tell from that process, I was doing a lot of trial and error, and this leads me to the second thing that I think is the reason why we do these artworks that sometimes turn out really good and then we can't recreate it, and that's what I call getting lucky. Basically, my process was to start out painting, and it was just really haphazard, and I would just paint and do something that feels good and then hope that it would just work out in the end. And when you have such a random approach to things, naturally it means that not all of your artworks are going to be to the same standard. Looking back now, if I had to properly approach those paintings, I would probably have spent more time on the drawing, like the illustration phase, and fleshed out the legs, and I would have spent more time on the composition, like thinking about, why am I drawing this character? Why is he standing there? Is there a story behind him? And how does the environment like assist with that story or that concept or that message? And then after putting all those hours into that, then I would have methodically went about sketching out the scene, determining the light source, determining the textures and the colors that I need to achieve the environment, and I think it would have turned out a lot better. Actually, I really want to repaint some of these old paintings to show my progress, but I can't do it today because I don't have time, but definitely in the future. Okay, this has been a long video and it's been kind of rambly, but I hope you found it helpful. I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, please leave a like or a comment below. And leave me some questions. I'm thinking about doing a Q&A in the future, so if I get some good questions that I think are interesting to answer, I'll definitely make videos about those. Maybe even a live stream, so who knows. Oh, by the way, before you go, I forgot to include a blatant plug for my Patreon page, where depending on the level of support that you give, you'll either get access to my private Patreon feed or access to high definition 4K wallpapers of the painting that I do for that month. So yeah, it looks great on your desktop or on your iPhone, and you just get to carry it with you, and yeah. So yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys. Bye.